So now
Can you hear us now, Kim? Hey, Kim. Is she there?
Yep, I'm here. I just had to unmute. Sorry.
We got it. We're live streaming now. We somehow figured it out.
Yay.
But I could not replicate that process again if I tried. I just want everybody to take note of that because
I can show you where. No, here's where it is on the Zoom. It was under here, under more, and YouTube is an actual choice. So you go to more, and if you scroll up, well, it's not there because I'm on it, but it was a choice. That's all I chose.
Oh, I would never have thought to.
So you want me to sit here to let people in, correct?
Yeah, you don't mind.
I don't mind a bit.
No.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Oh, yeah.
I got it. Yeah, sorry.
Fantastic.
Yeah. How many nights you crying at night? Not yet. Oh, not yet. Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
It's a rough second, third grade.
Hello, hello. How are you?
How's everybody?
Good.
I just had a meeting with your mom.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did.
What was she?
She's getting me set up, or a bunch of teachers set up on the site.
Oh,
Yeah. No,
she does not stop.
I didn't think where's my mom? I think she's got it again.
She makes me tired. She makes me
No, there's not, that's it.
You ready, Bert?
Yeah.
All right. Got all your notes memorized?
In my head.
Great. That's what I meant. So it's first.
Look at that thing. Oh, yeah, that is.
Are you enjoying that? You're on Zoom and live on YouTube right now. So anybody watching the meeting is watching you jump up and down.
How long does it roll live?
Before I go.
Yeah.
I think then if it's only. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, stop jumping.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
I think I'm gonna go sit in the day. Last month, I was the only one.
I know, I
over here, I see that it's like a direct angle of this.
If you emailed it to me, so I'm pulling. I just can't, I don't see it. Like I saw it here. Oh, there it is.
Kathy, who owns, is that your book, 14 Cows from America?
Yes, ma'am. Would you like to
Buy
borrow
just
it?
this year?
No, ma'am, I've had it for several years.
Man, I wish I knew that.
Yeah, you can take it and use it.
I was gonna use it during 9/11.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, it is 9/11 centered. However, I mean, the story of that doesn't take place for months after. It
Can I
would be
borrow
good.
it later?
Absolutely, yeah. Take it with you.
I put it through
Okay, how are you? I was told 6:15, so I think we're waiting for other people to get here.
I remember the-
I thought it was at 6 we started.
Well,
I didn't start.
Once you get through the first.
Then we'll go into.
Okay.
And I don't do anything.
We can order. We need other people to get here.
Right.
I'm
Yeah,
not,
so
I don't know
whoever's-
what, is anyone else coming? Sorry.
That's Neil first.
She's not.
Thank you.
I did.
Did you leave your hair?
Yes, but it's great. I'm getting cut on
I like
Saturday.
Like every 4 weeks.
Navigation and making it.
It's just right before
Good afternoon.
Hi. Is that Neil?
It's Neil.
That's Neil.
Hi, Neil.
I'm driving from Morehead City back to Wilmington.
Well, be safe in your travels. Sorry, I'll put it back.
I have to unplug this thing because it overheats my phone. It's crazy.
I mean,
Work in the program. And then, I mean, like you were. You were.
They said they're joining online.
Still hearing.
Yeah.
Going to be okay, yeah. It is 6 o'clock. I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Hello, welcome. Here, or will be. No. Class and board meetings. I think that's good. Neil, is that against Robert's rules to class and board meetings?
Say that again. I couldn't quite hear you.
Never mind. Never mind.
Sorry.
The Robert's rules. Okay, let's see. Where are we? We have some community members today. I'm here. Where are they? Who is responsible for these delightful young people?
Well, these are Angelica Colvin's students, or one student, and someone else who's, you're a sibling, right? Okay. Bert, do you wanna share? Do you want me to introduce and then you can tell them about it?
What do I do to introduce?
Well, why did you sign up? What did your teacher ask you to do? Come and do what?
Present about our bridge project.
Yeah, so years ago, we started, honestly, I think it was one of the first teaching partners I had here. This is actually a middle school, high school project. They build bridges. It's an engineering project. And we've kind of simplified it in a little bit. And both of our classes, pretty regularly, every 5th grade does this, and our bridge breaking ceremony will be Monday morning. But we met together as teams, and I think you were an architect, correct?
I wasn't, no, I'm not.
You weren't an architect.
Bella was.
So I take it pretty seriously. I wear a foreman hat, like I'm ready to take it on. They have roles, they have to apply for their job. There's an architect, there's an accountant, project director, transportation chief. What was your job?
I was a carpenter
Carpenter.
and an accountant and a project director.
Oh, you took on 3 jobs. And they had to work together, so we put them in teams, and it was a beginning of the year project because it reviews all kinds of math concepts. They learn how to write checks and fill out a balance form, and we talk about supply and demand. And I don't know about in your class, but in my class, I let my warehouse manager put sales on things. Like, no one's buying land, and she put the land on sale, and they buy the land and they have to measure it out. And they literally start with, they make plans. We review different trusses for bridges and the structure. We talk about the geometry of the design and the structure of it. And so they have to build 4 pieces, or it's a total of 4 pieces, but they take from design. And of course I work with them and check their designs. And then they get to work and they get a piece of wax paper and they build it like a puzzle. So they put the toothpicks with Elmer's glue on top of it. And when it dries, as long as there's no, do you remember the rule for the toothpicks? They had to be what?
Connected.
They have to be connected. So as long as there's no floating toothpicks, this comes off in one piece. And then they're able to put it together, and it was tricky. They were ahead because I got sick and I was a little bit 2 days behind. So they start like this, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell one of your favorite parts of it, or what you remember about the project?
My favorite part was the start.
Starting it. You had, okay.
Because it was a lot easier. All you had to, in the start, we were building the support beams, and then it started to get harder when we had to connect them.
We got really creative with connecting, and this one we're going to connect a little bit more. We let them design them also, and this one went a little rainbow, which is pretty awesome, and built the bridge. And then on Monday, what we're going to do is we're going to put them in between 2 tables, and I'm going to connect the bottom. So I'll have a piece of string that's going to come up through the hole and through the bridge. This bridge was actually one that survived the test. And then I put a bucket underneath it, and then we put weights. We're gonna use water bottles to see how much weight each bridge can hold. And I mean, we've had years where a bridge has held a whole case of water before, but, and then we'll have to figure out how we're gonna divvy up the bridges, because they worked in teams of 4 or 5 to do it. And it was, I mean, they had to write order forms. The order forms had to be signed by the accountant, by the project directors. And I was pretty harsh on them at first. They got fined, noise violations, safety violations. I gave them free advice at the end, but if they warranted my advice during the project, it was an audit, and I would mark their folder, like, and each time it would double. So it took it pretty seriously, and it was fun. And then I think breaking them is really fun too, even though that sounds, are you upset about breaking them, or are you excited about it?
In our class, you get the choice if you want to break it.
Oh, okay. I am not taking my kids. They will be breaking the bridges, because that's, how else are we gonna test them? I guess you could test them. Another way you could test them is feel how this thing is really solid.
Bert, do you want to walk them around?
Yeah, why don't
maybe,
you-
and that way people can ask
Yeah.
some questions if they have any for you.
Can I do one?
Yeah, this one is completed. This one is a little gentle because it's not connected to the land yet, but. Yeah, but that one is, I mean, it's solid. That thing held
breaking things. I'm not that
held like, I don't know, 20 pounds or something crazy like that. Yeah.
Very cool.
Bert, what were some of the problems your group worked
Oh,
through
that's
to
a
try to
good
figure it
question.
out?
Attaching them, because we had an error, because we made these too big, so we had to add them, the support beams, like you see this, that's a different length than that one, so we didn't make them all the same size.
And did your group always agree?
Not always, the name was really hard.
What was the name?
See design, but since we made it rainbow, we changed it to Pride Bridges Company, but that's also PVC.
They had to come up with team names and agree. In my class, they came up with chants, and then their project director had to reflect every day on their jobs of each of the members and if they did their job well and, yeah, but it's a fun project. It does take time and I think at a lot of schools, they would have put pressure on teachers not to do that because we took time to do this project, which was very involved, but it allowed us to build team and to practice skills and to get us ready to go, so. It was
Okay, so we could be clapping.
I thought it was interesting whenever Burke was explaining the project to us this morning, the accounting aspect of it and how much the toothpicks cost and
Oh, yeah.
things like that. And I was really impressed whenever he said that he came in under budget.
They started with over $1 million and they were like cheering like, what? And then when they found out like the land was 500,000, a bundle of lumber was 10,000, $1,000 per piece. Welding material, which is glue, is $850. If they needed extra planning paper, it was so, but yeah, it was interesting. Yeah.
A lot of effort.
Such a good project.
Burke,
Feel that.
Burke, do you have any last tips for students coming up after you doing this project? Things to keep in mind or?
Get a lot of glue in the start.
Courtney Lewis, our STEM teacher, global STEM teacher, was wondering if it might, I've always wanted to do it again at the end of the year, and she thought it would be cool to do with the kids after they've already done it, to see how they would have improved upon it, so I thought that would be a really cool thing.
Be fun to do in 8th grade.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And do suspension bridges and
Heck, yeah.
the dental floss.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. It's a really cool project to get on. And now we have our retreat presentation.
Yes, so sorry, we didn't mean to extend your night, but we just wanted to present on the middle grades retreat before, while it was still fresh in your minds. So she's pulled up our slides.
Fresh in your minds?
That our children put together.
He looks a little like Jason Mraz there.
I'm gonna pull the kids in, they're gonna present.
I mean, most people said a 7th grader, so I get.
One of my kids told him, you just need a propeller on your hat, Mr. B.
Yeah, uh-huh, yeah.
Most 7th graders don't have quite so much shadow.
Yeah, Just texted Timmy this morning. Cool, thanks.
While we're waiting, can we just go ahead and approve minutes? Anybody have, everybody review the minutes? Anything? Oh, I need a motion. I can make a motion. Oh. Second.
We have a mix of 6th and 7th graders here, come on in. No, 8th graders volunteers, sorry.
I didn't know any 8th grade, it was even an option. I had no idea this was
Oh, I
happening.
thought I emailed it, sorry.
No, uh-uh.
So you guys can go ahead and
How will I know when to, will they tell me when to
I
turn?
can tell you when to switch.
Okay.
So you can flip to the next slide. They're gonna take turns reading them and then they're gonna share
That's
some.
fine, y'all. They just got it.
Okay.
Oh, dang it. I can't move the there.
Here, I'll move this. Oh, hold tight.
Yeah, that's a good spot.
Okay. The campus at BJP, that TF10, is amazing. If and when you go to BJP, you will be overwhelmed by all of the nature. The trees towering down and the sound of the birds and insects. BJP is a truly wonderful place to visit. The campus is astonishing. Being there, experiencing this environment was so great. We are all looking forward to coming back next year.
No one else wanna do these, or do you wanna do these? No one else.
The boys' cabin has 3 sections, the left side, the right side, and the upstairs section. The left section and the right section could each house 8 kids. The upstairs sections can house 8 also. There are 2 beds for counselors in the center of the cabin. In total, there are 24 kids and 2 counselors. It is very hot upstairs because the hot air rose in the upstairs section. There's 2 bathrooms. Well, yeah, 2 bathrooms and 2 showers in the cabin. And the whole camp, there was 8 cabins in total. Girl cabins. There was 3 sections of the girl cabins. One half of the cabin was big, open, roomy when you look up. The other half of the cabin was not open top or that had that much room. The cabins also had a second floor. The second floor has 4 bunk beds. There were 8 people, 6 students, 2 adults on the top floor, and 14 people on the bottom. 10 students, 2 teachers, and 2 chaperones. There were 2 showers and 2 bathrooms on the bottom floor, plus another bathroom in the top floor. We think table waiters are a good idea. It causes people to not get up all at once and only one person per every table, and reduce crowding. It teaches how to set the table and clean up after yourself. The children setting the table is at the table will learn manners and how to act around the dinner table. It also has a positive effect, giving the waiters first serve.
Every night, there was a different set of children that volunteered to be table waiters, so every child had a chance to be a table waiter.
And
Out
that's,
on meals.
it's not a part of like the requirement, like they have to do that, right?
They do.
Every group has to,
That's
so
awesome.
every kid has to be a table waiter.
Honestly, for me, eating family style was one of the, seriously, the best parts of the camp. Because a lot of kids, we just don't eat family style anymore.
Yeah.
We just don't. So,
How many nights were you?
2 nights,
2
3
nights.
days. And all of middle grade, what did you say, you want me to read it or you want me? Okay. So food waste, the camp talks about food waste and tries to teach them about it. So their food waste chart and no food waste is a great idea. Although this student felt a little pressured to eat everything on their plate so that next time they wouldn't have, food waste. So hopefully they wanted to rework their system. But that child was my child and came back and tried to teach her brothers about food waste. And we talked about it at the table the next day, all her idea. So it was great to see that transference.
Yeah, okay. These challenges at camp were meant to teach us students how to work better as a team whilst playing multiple fun games, including Where's My Chicken, a team building game, where the premise is of red light, green light, but when you got to the counselor, there's a stuffed animal behind him, and a student would pick it up and try to run back. But if this counselor finds the stuffed animal gone, he gets 3 guesses at who has the stuffed animal.
They also had to try and walk on that log all together. There were 2 logs and they had ropes attached to them. So as a team, they had to try and walk on that. Another one, they had to get across the whole log in a chain without falling off. That was your child's. There's just a bunch of different team challenges that frustrate them at first, but then get them really looking to work as teams.
Okay. Aquatics. When we were exploring the stream and found these aquatic animals, such as crayfish, leopard frogs, water ticks, tadpole, water spider, clams, and hard shell worms and fish. So yeah, we just went into creeks and found animals.
And they had a tree map to identify the creatures. That was really cool. I brought back from the camp.
That was something that was unique to 6th grade. 7th and 8th grade did not do any of the aquatics, so that was kind of a designated experience just for 6th grade.
Separate in grade levels?
Yes,
during that?
yes.
The bottom right was a beaver dam. There's a whole group of family of beavers that created it.
I go back, but I don't know how.
No.
Hold on.
Okay,
Let me go back.
We let the ropes go one.
It's all good.
Yeah.
How did we ever do this? Like all the time?
Yeah, right.
Just read a paragraph.
There we go.
I try to block it out of my mind.
Right?
I'll do the one. First one? Okay. At camp, Betsy, Jeff Penn, they had a type of activity called the high ropes. To start, you climb up a ladder and then you climb a few staples in the tree. Once you can put your foot on the wire/log, you start to climb across the other tree. To complete it, you touch the other tree and climb back to the middle and get lowered back to the ground.
Belaying is a complicated job where there are 3 people and the instructor, and then 2 others, the second belayer and the collector. They have to hold the rope, then the second player has to feed the rope to the collector, and the collector has to collect the rope. When it is time to get the person down, the collector starts to feed the rope to the second player, who then feeds the rope to the instructor. And those are pictures of what it looks like.
It's also challenge by choice, so if students don't want to summit all the way, they can choose their challenge level. And often we'll then try and choose a more challenging one the next year and look forward to that. There were students that stayed behind and did not attend the retreat, so this was their experience. Would one of you want to read this, or do you want me to read it?
You can.
So they said that we had fun at school because we played snakes, watched Night at the Museum while eating popcorn, and saved gummy worm Fred from drowning with certain materials. They did teamwork cup stacking, they played goose chase, scavenger hunt, drew feathers and art, created slides about animals, had free time and technology, painted the backgrounds white, performing arts, and did 2 escape rooms. So they did some challenges together to build that community unity. They did some frustrating things too, so similar stuff in their version here. And there's some pictures for theirs on the next page. And then the last page is Rosebud Thorn, which was an activity that most of the groups did at the camp, where a rose was your favorite part of the retreat, or that day, or the activity, however they framed it. The bud was something you're looking forward to in the next activity or the next day, and then the thorn is something you didn't enjoy as much about the experience. So these middle schoolers wanted to share their rosebud thorns about the retreat. Do we have time for this? Sure. Go ahead, Eliana, you can start. And we'll get it up.
My rose was probably the high rose because I really like to climb. My bud is I really want to go on the zip line next year. It wasn't open for 6th graders, but some said I could do it. And my thorn was probably, I didn't get as good of sleep as I would like to.
Me too, girl, me too.
For me, my rose was the zip line. I really enjoyed it because whatever we just like not have to do that much and just fall basically. Well, not fall, but zip line.
Safely fall.
Yes, fall with style.
There you go, I like it.
My bud is probably the fact that I really want to see how the cabins differ from each other, and so I'm excited to see the cabins if they even do differ. But it's most likely that they will. And for me, my thorn was sometimes with table waiting, you would have like 2 different table waiters at the same table, so it just creates twice the traffic and congestion. So it just takes longer to get food and stuff.
Good feedback, William.
My rose was food. It was really good. My bud is I'm really looking forward to doing the zip line next year, and then my thorn is that I hope I get better sleep because I didn't get as much sleep.
Okay. I was really grateful for this opportunity, and my rose is all the people in my group and everything we did together was really fun. My bud is we couldn't go on the zip line, but hopefully next year. And third, my thorn is I didn't have a thorn. It was a really great trip.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, my rose was the aquatics. I really liked it. My bud is the zip line. It just looked like a lot of fun. I'm sad we didn't get to do it this year. And my thorn was the high ropes because I'm scared of heights. I didn't do it, but from the people who did, they said they really didn't like it.
Anyone else?
My rose was the zip line because it was really cool. My first time doing it. My bud is the high ropes, and my thorn was that I didn't have as many of my friends that I wanted in my group, but I only had a couple.
All right, so my rose was, well, all the activities we did in the group, which were really fun. And my bud was, can't wait to do the zip line next year since we didn't get to do it.
They're just traumatized by that.
Yeah. My thorn would have to be that it was really hot. I cannot handle that. I slept upstairs. Barely get any sleep. Yeah.
Thank you all.
That was all. Slide, always provided them with listen.
Wait, what do we do?
Go home.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I have number 2. And also, we only go up to approve, like, did everybody say 5? Can I get a vote? Minutes? Okay, awesome.
Okay, so all in favor, anybody opposed? Okay, good. Now, Susan, take it away. All right, so we do not have too terribly much to share tonight. There is a packet if you're interested over here that has the agenda and several items that we'll be discussing. I will start with the budget analysis report. This is the board version, which is the condensed version. There is not much activity in the month of August because we're not really back to regular operations. So I will point out a couple of things that will stick out to you most likely. In the facilities up top in revenues, you'll see the 3650. This was an insurance settlement. So this was a check that was cut to us to repair damage that was sent to the campus. So that's why you'll see that particular number offset and not part of our revenue. That would be traditionally seen on a budget. If you go down, so that this format shows you the percent of the budget that's been used and the EOY projection. So how much are we projected to spend? And in most areas where our projections are accurate, we'll continue to review that as we go month to month to determine if we need to adjust or vote to adjust any of the items in the budget. For books and supplies, I think you'll notice we're at just about 51% of what we anticipated to spend, but these are a lot of upfront costs in the school year when you're talking about instructional supplies, materials for classrooms, any number of items that fall under books and supplies. A lot of this is front loaded at the beginning of the year. So we don't have concerns that we're going to go above and beyond that budget, but we will keep an eye on that. If we also look to staff development, it's 62.62%. Some of this is going to be reclassed into grant funding as well. So this is another thing to keep an eye on, but this is funding responsive classroom, for example, for our new staff members, which is very expensive. So we have cut back a bit on our staff development, given that we don't have as much grant funding from ESSER coming into our operating budget this year. So again, something that we're passionate about, but keeping an eye on to make sure that our staff have the opportunities, but we're not extending beyond our means. For our facilities, we're at 36.55%, which is not a terrible number, but I did want to note that a lot of that is in building services. We had a lot of unexpected building expenses in the beginning of the year, including our AC unit that we had to replace, but not the full unit. So there were some pieces and parts that needed to be replaced in order to get it functioning again, which cost us $5,000 that we were not expecting to spend. We were generously donated a dehumidifier, but then we had to pay for the cost of delivery and pickup for the dehumidifier because the air conditioning, I mean, the papers were literally scrolling up into balls, so that's how humid it was in the room. So we did have to invest in that as well. So we have had some expenses that we weren't anticipating. We are going to keep an eye on that, and we'll of course keep you informed if anything feels like we need to discuss at the board level. That's about all we have. Technology, remember those are those numbers, 65.54. A lot of those again are upfront costs that we incur at the beginning of the year. So does anybody have any questions? There's not a whole lot of activity again because this represents August. So this is right when staff is coming back. We don't have a lot of expenditures besides payroll costs and the few instructional supplies that we have incurred at the beginning of the school year. Any questions there? Next month, we will have somebody from CSP joining us to provide a budget update and more of an audit of where we are. So somebody will be joining us in addition to me. Moving on to the balance sheet, nothing, again, much to note here, other than I like to keep this in front of you each month so you can review it. Our assets and liabilities are comparable to where we would expect them to be. We're looking at about 2.09 million that we have access to, and you can see how that is allocated in the different line items through the assets and deducted through the liabilities. Most all of the liabilities, with the addition of the mortgage, which is where you'll see the accounts payable, the 24,599.07. That's the monthly mortgage that we pay. But all of those other costs are employer costs for employee benefits as well. Any questions on that? All right, I'm going to turn it over to Ben Rose for our facilities report.
This is just wrapping up a few things that Susan's already mentioned. We got through the bulk of our big projects over the summer, so this is a quick one. We are still waiting on the permitting from the city regarding our sign, our monument sign. That has proven to be a bigger challenge than manufacturing the sign.
Is it something that needs to get pushed?
They are the sign company, that's part of their thing, so they're pushing it for us. It's even they're kind of surprised at the unprecedented amount of time it's taken.
Do they need another push?
Well, I don't think anybody would turn down help. So there we go. So any would be appreciated. Yeah. So we and that was as of my last communication with the sign company. Saltwater Sign Works was just a few weeks ago in early September. Not to be upstaged, but the playgrounds are now complete. Who cares about the sign? The playgrounds are complete. That has been decades in the making, and we finally have a fully functioning 4A playground and a fully functioning K-3 playground. So that
And the kids love it.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
do they love it.
And I think the adults on campus enjoy watching the kids use the equipment. So we are all thrilled with that. Just to recap on that condensing unit that we replaced in the 4.8, that has been done. Susan went over the cost of that. That ran at $5,000. And then our last project, which was completed on Friday, we had the weather stripping replaced on the exterior doors. And then we had some spacers that needed at each entrance that needed some attention. So those have been taken care of to make it a little bit safer moving through the in and out with the doorways. And that was at a cost of $1,300. As far as technology goes, we have in the past couple of years moved to scanning all the documents, student records and administrative records through a third party. That has been complete, and we are now, it was cost prohibitive to have them store that, so Emerge has created a secure drive for us that everything's being uploaded as we speak right now. So I received confirmation on that on Friday, so that's taking place. So yeah. Any questions on any of that?
All right, Facilities Planning Committee, we met on September 11th to discuss the nature of our building, any options that we have moving forward, whether we'd like to stay or go or relocate and what that might look like. So this was just step one in, I'm sure, a lengthy process. But we met, we assembled. Kathy Mintz is representing the faculty. We've got Ben Pierce, Ben Rose. Josh is one of our board members, Neil Firth, we were hoping he would join us as well from the finance perspective, myself, Kim, and Corey from CSP, Charter Success Partners. So we assembled, we started talking, we've got spreadsheets to play around with, we've got some fun things like that, looking at numbers and trying to determine what our next steps are. So we don't really have an update, but we did want to put it in front of you that we're talking, and we are going to start to roll it out to the faculty to start to see what those decisions might play out to be.
How much of a, excuse me, say does the faculty have in that? Are you the liaison? Are you talking to the faculty? Do you have discussed the meeting?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we don't do anything without faculty input. So
Right.
this was just to get the ball rolling, honestly.
And everyone was invited. to
And
be a part.
everyone was invited to be
Oh,
part of
okay.
it. I was not elected or
Oh,
chosen.
okay.
No, I was
I
just the only one who volunteered.
It's
So,
not at all exclusive.
no, not at all. No, not at all.
Anyone from the board is welcome. You
Yeah.
all can join us, we can have a big
I
party.
anticipate that as more starts to go, I anticipate more people joining. I honestly do. I think that just the invitation came at the very beginning of the year when everybody was really busy. And so I anticipate that there will probably be more faculty members jumping on board for sure. But regardless of whether they do or not, it will absolutely 100% be something that we discuss whole staff. It's just too big of a decision.
Right.
So.
And when do y'all have those meetings? I hear you.
Well, we are scheduling them as we're able. So the first meeting was Monday, the 11th. The next meeting we decided was Monday, December 11th. So it gives us time to gather some feedback.
Is it during the day or at night?
It's after school.
It is.
Mhm. Yeah, we started 3:45, went until 4:45. As we progress, I'm sure the meetings might be a little lengthier. We're trying to be a little more productive, but this was really just a gathering as a group to start having the conversation.
I was really impressed with that consultant.
I was as well.
Right, yeah. Thank you for that.
I'm easily impressed though, so, but.
Well, I will say Corey
He seemed
John
helpful.
is, he is the CEO of Charter Success Partners, our new partner for finance and student information services, but he has also assisted in 15+ facilities projects for schools of varying decision factors as well. He has taken a school all the way through that decided to ultimately stay where they were. He has taken schools to new property. He has, fabricated other buildings. So he's got really a great breadth and depth of knowledge when it comes to facilities and planning. But it's a lengthy process. This is years. This is not a matter of months. So starting to have the conversation is important. And then ensuring that we're making progress with where we're going and not hitting a stopgap. That's also important because it does take so long to map this out. It is something that we'd like to continue to make forward progress as well.
He's a pretty straight shooter as well. I really appreciated that. Like, this is gonna have to happen, whatever that, you know what I mean? That not moving or whatever. I'm not insinuating that, but just like, he was very straightforward with, if you choose this, this has to happen. If you choose this, this has to happen. So it was very nice to have that perspective and not with somebody who's bogged down in the emotions of all of it, because it is very emotional for everybody.
Yeah, of course. And we said as we move forward, we'll have to bring other people into the fold as well who have other areas of expertise. So it's not simply this core group, it's also bringing in, if we need to look at real estate, or we need to have we've got our appraisal, so we know how much we're worth. What do we need to do for facilities planning in terms of what we should expect to go? How much is that going to cost? Those are all questions that we are not necessarily experts in. So just seeking the people who have the answers is important as well. Any other questions? All right, and then we had a school safety update. The entire staff was trained on the ALICE approach on August 18th. We had a good training. It was very intense training, and I think we gained a lot, and I think everyone is welcome to share out if anybody has anything to say about that.
It was necessary, but I did not.
I wouldn't say it's an enjoyable topic to discuss.
But it was
Right around the time of us having that, we had that kind of, things even just happening in our own neighborhoods, that Wrightsville Beach thing that happened, it's just,
the same day.
it's a reality of our life right now. It was,
So we are, Ben and I have discussed, we would like to put it out to the board. If you're interested in being trained, we can set up a time outside of the school reading window. and we would take you through the training so that you're familiar with the staff if it's supposed to, if you haven't already been trained in the Alice approach, it's open to you. So I'll send something out and let you know, and just let me know if you're interested and we can go from there.
It's really good knowledge for anyone.
It really is for anyone.
And I think a lot of the takeaways that we talked about, even in the safety committee, are it doesn't just apply in the school setting, it changes your mindset when you're anywhere, you know, so it's not just specific to an event that could happen at your workplace. So, anything you want to add on that?
Not much more other than, there is I think as Carla and Nancy touched on, there's a bit of a mourning period, that this is in fact what we have to discuss, but we do have to discuss it. And then the other is like Susan said, it does, you do look at your surroundings differently, which is the point. But it's also the point not to be, completely freak out by your surroundings leaving the house every day. That is not it. So it's, you know, I look at it as the tool just to get through as we go through, but it is certainly not meant at all to change your daily patterns or habits or anything like that. Maybe just look at it a little different.
So the next step, we're going to talk to our safety committee. We're planning to meet again in the month of October and just discuss how we want to roll this out. It's important that we start with parent information sessions before we even get it into the hands of students. What does that need to look like? We're months out from this. This is not something that we want to rush, but it is something that we plan for. And there are developmentally appropriate materials that the Navigate 360 offers to us that provides what to say, how to present it, what are the resources and materials that are helpful in K through 8 settings for those students. So just something that we're going to start talking about, but again, that requires a great deal of planning. And then finally, in the school safety update, we did investigate some safety options. We did report out to our faculty at our staff or our faculty meeting on Friday during the workday. Our finance committee looked at several different options, and that's kind of step one, is to look at the financial impact that these options would have on us. If you figure anything that we are going to implement with regard to reinforcing our campus with respect to safety is not going to be coming out of our current operating budget. It's going to be coming out of what we have in reserve. So that's something that would have to be a board decision and something that was collectively decided there. If you did click on the link there to the school safety options, we have investigated 4 options. We discussed this in our finance committee this past week. The first of which is reinforcing our campus in the way of lights and noise and different security options that we haven't investigated to the fullest extent. The potential of fencing, if it's possible in certain areas, to try to negate that desire to wander onto our campus, because it can be very inviting in certain areas, and there are areas that are easy to hide in. So also, coupled with that is the trimming back of anything that we can with regard to shrubs and underbrush and things like that that are places to hide. So that's one of the options, is just kind of a smorgasbord of how can we reinforce our campus.
Retractable spikes on the benches.
Okay.
Mean. Yeah, they were talking about, you know, how they're building park benches now with the armrest in the middle, so
Yes.
it's not something to sleep on, and just to make the space uninviting.
Or
I was like, we can't do that. I know. I was like.
Yeah, we won't be
Thinking of it that way is
repurposing
fine.
our benches, but it is something that city planning is focusing on also. Also, another option is a private security company that would run us for coverage of during our school hours. We're looking at about $31,000, and it is a contract, so that is something you commit to and you can't back off of. So we would have the 1,047 hours he quoted us, and that's when we would have that service on our campus patrolling. The third option was Wilmington Police Department. They do contracts. It's $46 an hour for a uniformed officer, but you must commit to 4 hours per day of the contract. So I think there is a little more wiggle room there. You just have to provide 12 hours notice to the WPD, letting them know that you really need that service. But that's the extent of the initial information that we have, right? So if you're looking at the same number of hours or 4 hours a day as the minimum, we're looking at about $25,000 in an investment there. And the fourth option is an SRO. What's important to note about an SRO, there is an initial cost of the vehicle that the school would incur. So I would quote it at $43,000 for a vehicle that we would have to outfit the officer in. And then the additional cost of the actual SRO, who is typically experienced. So you're looking at between $75,000 and $85,000 for a salary and fringe. So combined, you're at about $120,000 to $130,000 in an investment. And that vehicle is obviously not our property, but we have to fund that piece of equipment in order for the officer to be able to get here and leave. So, I mean, that's the deal that the sheriff's department has for those that request an SRO. Now, both the Wilmington Police Department and the Sheriff's Department are understaffed to some degree. So it is all dependent upon who will staff it. So if there's a contract, it's a choice. And if someone does not take the contract, you're not covered for that, understandably. For the Sheriff's Department, that would not happen this year. That would be planning for next year. They would need to know sooner rather than later so they could start trying to find somebody and put all of that in the works. But it is, it's an investment, and that's obviously one of our options as well. Yes, sir.
Is it a rotating person or somebody who would be the same person that could develop a report with kids?
The SRO would be the same person, would be assigned to our campus. The Wilmington Police Department contract would not necessarily be the same person.
So fast math, you're 128 divided by 400 kids that are here on campus. First year, including guards, only $320 a kid.
I don't know how much room for discussion we haven't talked about this before, but I mean, it's a lot of money for, not a guarantee of our safety. And I think when we're talking about cutting jobs and TAs and positions, the idea of considering that much money for an SRO officer seems, I can't even, yeah.
I mean, it seems prudent to move with number one. I mean, that's a no-brainer with clearing out, making the environment inhospitable for overnight guests and the like, and moving forward and then assessing, see where we are with increased light and measures. The SRO, that's a big deal, and it's scary, and like you said, it doesn't really ensure safety. I mean, we've looked at the statistics. I mean, you guys have just been through the training, you know, I mean, what's happened at our schools, and they have multiple SROs, right? So we're dealing with people who have mental illness and addiction, and I think if we just make the path less hospitable, like they're gonna take the path of least resistance. So if it's not comfortable to stay here, they won't. So if we take that step and then assess, I mean, I'm speaking for myself as a director, you know, board member, but if I weren't running this thing, that's much I would make.
Is that, are we entertaining motions now?
We can, right? I mean,
Gotcha.
wasn't that?
That's certainly
For
the
the
choice.
first one?
That
The
would
first,
be-
like, well, I mean, we can,
And
we
you
can
have
move for
all
any
the
of it,
time to think about the other options as well. If you, for example, were to start with one thing and.
Right.
I mean,
Well, I think I would make a motion to table it.
okay.
Not even clearing brush and changing, you know, adding lights or sounds or other alternate options to kind of beef up and make it uncomfortable. Because what was happening right now, this is maybe you can say how, are we allowed to talk about that? Like, when we've had an incident, like what you guys are doing, like right now the staff is having, to, you know, kind of.
I mean, every morning,
Yeah.
I drive up every morning and, you know, drive by at least one or two people who look zombified out, like walking up, you know, they're not in it, but it happens pretty regularly, but.
Is Coastal Horizon willing to do any
We've met with them several times. We have a partnership and a direct line of contact. It's not necessarily something where we have support from them, but.
Because I can see that they have a security
They do,
person that
and we-
stands at that corner.
Right, and we.
And I considered telling Trillium that their non-smoking policy is real silly, given the context of the school. You know, they can't smoke because
They
of
stand at the
Trillium.
sign.
You can't go
Are we okay?
But Coastal is not willing to like kind of like.
Kim didn't tell me she
control
couldn't
it, for
hear.
lack of better word.
Not our,
She got it.
not our. They are paying for that service. We asked for the name of that service and have reached that consensus proposal.
Susan,
Yes, Kim.
whenever, I'm sorry, I'm away, but whenever I can, if I could just speak to you for a sec.
Sure. Yeah.
Go now.
I just think there's a couple of things that people just need to, just think about. And we're not making a decision right now. But I think the couple things you need to think about is what's happening with our population, with our families. Who's leaving because they're seeing things. We had curriculum nights the other night, and we had parents come up to us and say, are you thinking about an SRO? Are you thinking about what things have been done? So for example, Susan was talking about meeting with Coastal for the smoking piece. We've had a conversation about using a safety grant to fund possibly an SRO. We've talked to other schools about possibly doing an SRO. Those are just examples, and those are just ideas. But I think the things you have to really think about are what are families thinking? Are they leaving because they don't like what they're seeing? And then that's another reason that we need to think about, is this a temporary fix, or if we're staying here, is this a long-term fix? So I think you have to think about those and have those discussions as well. It's not just about, is this what we're going to do right now? I think it has to be part of the bigger picture.
Is that part of the feedback that you've received, that that's why the kids are leaving? I mean, I don't know that that's what
I definitely have heard that, Evie. Yeah, I definitely have heard that. We lost a family with 3 kids in the school, and that was what they said.
Yeah.
And that's not the only one. I'm just giving you an example.
That doesn't.
But what I guess I'm saying is no, and I'm not certainly pushing a panic button. I'm saying, I think when we're having conversations, to be well informed about what's out there, what are people saying? I mean, I had at the last curriculum night, I had 3 parents come up to me and ask me what was happening. They see all the like you were already talking about, they see the people smoking on the sidewalk in the morning. They've heard, we've been in a shelter in place. They're concerned. They want to know. After the shelter in place, we had parents that inquired what exactly had happened. We can only tell them certain things, but it's not just business as usual. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And again, I'm not pushing any alarm button. I'm just saying, as we're thinking about it, you really have to think about everything, all the pieces of it. That's all.
And it's tricky, right? Because everything has a price. So like, I mean, I would say too, that I think some of the reason I saw leaving had to do with like like being able to keep your teachers and being able to pay them well and do well for them. And I mean, I know that was a concern. I mean, I know I don't know. I just know what I observed myself and what I talked to the other families, like there were some issues there in the 2nd and 3rd grade. So like, what are we going to invest in? There's not an unlimited budget. So are we gonna invest in SROs or are we gonna invest in your teaching staff? Like, and you might not be able to do both. And so.
I don't disagree, Evie. I guess what I would say is none of us are trained to deal with what we are going to have to call the police, which we did. We're going to have to call services that we need, which we did. But when there are people sleeping, on our property, we are not equipped. That is not Susan's job. It's not Ben's job. It's not Cassell's job. It's not my job. Those are we are not, that is not our job. We have to get support. And so I think that's the other part that we have to think about. And without going in, and I'm just going to tell you, I'm not saying that we should be getting an SRO. I'm not saying we should I'm just saying there are limitations to who we have in place right now on our staff, what we can do when we live in the environment we live in right now. That's all. And I think and I don't disagree with you about staff being well paid and those other things. I absolutely agree with you. And it's the tug, right? It's the push and pull. Like, what do we need to do? But Susan's and my number one job is the safety of our kids and our staff, period. That's our number one job, because if they're not safe and they don't feel safe, they're not going to be able to teach, and the kids aren't going to be able to learn. So.
And there's no responsibility on the part of the county, because this is county property, like the library, they don't have to do something.
This is our.
Yeah.
But I mean,
It's private
Well,
property.
my
Their
concern,
only issue is to come when we call.
Oh.
my concern.
And honestly, they have been much more responsive, I have to say. I mean, we had somebody parked out there the other day after report. There's been more patrolling. It's not great. Susan and Ben and I met with Officer Miller, who gave us great information and was right here when we had our shelter in place. I mean, wouldn't you say, Susan, it was immediate? I mean, within, 10 minutes, they were here. And so I think that's the other part. We've become very familiar with and are having good relationships with our partners, so the police department, coastal, that type of thing. But it would be remiss of us not to say this is what's happening, so that you have a full understanding as a board about what's going on. And even with teachers, when we talk about a new place or not, teachers have an opinion about it, right? I mean, we all have our opinion, and it might not be the same opinion, but we also have to rely on experts and people that know us or don't know us, but might know what's around us, right? And what the problems are that we're facing. So I think we have to rely on some expertise as well. That's all.
I did hear the person who normally does our walks around the school say for the first time this encounter, the first time, they were not comfortable in it, and it was not something that they're like, okay, this is what I do every day. I'm okay chasing these people off. But there's a moment there where that's scary, and that's hard to say. Your job is to be in a scary position.
Was that during the school day?
Yes.
I'm just
That
curious.
was me.
I don't know.
Okay, so
But I appreciate you. No, it was, and it was not to, I certainly don't want to overstate, but of all the times of addressing individuals on campus, that was the first time where I did feel that I may well have to defend myself because of the nature of the individual at the time. And I also want to point out that the police have also instructed us, law enforcement has said, do not engage. Now, I did not go running in there like that. This was a little bit different situation. But the police have also stated to staff, do not engage. That is our job. And so I just put that out there. with that. But I also want to say, I don't think we're seeing anything different than what a large part of the country is seeing. This is not unique to us. I know that Coastal comes up quite a bit. I have to say that we have a good relationship, I think, with Coastal. We are neighbors. We both deal with vulnerable populations in our own capacities and are trying to do our best for those populations. And the fact is, a lot of the folks, you know, from my armchair observation, are not necessarily Coastal folks. We have a very large transient population here that are not part of that program, but it is a convenient corridor. 28401 is designated as one of the most unhealthy zip codes as is designated as the most unhealthy zip code in the Hanover County. And that's what it comes down to. We are where we are.
So that is where my concern comes in, is at night. I mean, an SRO won't be here. It seems like, you know, or early morning. I mean, I understand during the school day that would be helpful, but I think there's a lot going on, you know, after school hours.
It was nice to hear that you had other things on that list, instead of just going to the top of SRO, but there are other potential options that we can investigate and look at.
I feel strongly that lights and cameras that could communicate,
Yeah,
at my house, I can talk through my Ring camera, or I can talk. If we had that capacity where it could be like, hey, dude, you can't be there, I'm gonna have to call the police, you know, like.
Oh, you need the cameras to talk to the people.
Yeah.
Walking by. Totally there.
I think that's why you would do some of those. And Amy had brought some of this stuff when we first started talking about it. She had sort of said some of these, you know, first layering of how we can start to beef up our security. And so I think that those are the things that those shouldn't even be a question. We should just do them. I mean, there's a cost, but I think we should just do them. And I think that when you talk about what's during the day versus what's at night, or what you find in the morning, yeah, those are the things that could help us almost immediately. And when we mentioned some of those to like Officer Miller or the police, they definitely think that those are things that we should move forward with. So
We've increased signage already, right?
With increased signage, we did have lights that were on campus that were not installed prior to this week, and South has installed the lights. We had 4 different lights that we were able to project onto the different areas. So it's a start, but we certainly could use more equipment, and it's just a matter of researching that equipment and finding the best fit for what our needs are on this campus. So we don't have exact guidance.
I motion that you have your cameras and your lights.
Well, Jeff has a point too, in that maybe
Yeah,
we need the specifics of it before we, but I mean, can we just put a cap on it? We could put a cap on it.
I was gonna say double what's there, because I heard fencing and landscaping also.
Well, that wasn't incorporated into that estimate in terms of cost. Yeah.
Right,
It'll-
and that's
it'll
kind of
definitely
what
be-
I
I was thinking of about probably $10,000 to $15,000.
Yeah, and that's just reading what's here on this piece of paper: lighting, sounds, additional alarms, things like that. We've got lighting, we've got sounds. We've got those things already, and I think we just redid the cameras.
We did.
Yeah, and that's why my eyes didn't even go on option number 1. I didn't know that it included landscaping and fencing. No problem. I love the idea of that. Like, best neighbors, good fence. Just, but.
Right? That's the same.
Yeah, I'm totally down for that.
I know that.
But I mean, my brain's over here going further. Okay, let's take it a year down the road. What's the day-to-day look like? As far as budgets go, budgets change, enrollment changes, hit a slump, lose 4 kids, you know, bump back up, or 8 bigger next year, things like that. I have an 8-hour day. Y'all have an 8-hour school day as well. Let's just pretend like 6 to 10 private contractor, and then from 10 to, what would that be, 8 hours? 6? 10 to 6 for, who wasn't in the last meeting that said they don't feel comfortable working here at night anymore.
That was me.
Yes.
That was in our facilities meeting. I said,
But
I
then-
won't be here.
But if you could do a blend throughout the day, if the budget works, you know, do a blend to where we can have a 12-hour rotating shift, so you're not on the line in the mornings, you're not on the line at night. You know, is this pick one off the list?
No, and this is not an exhaustive list either
Right.
necessarily. These are options that we were researching and reached out to different countries. So it's not to say that these are all the answers or.
Right.
You know, so I think
Yes.
it's just a starting point for a discussion that's really important for the board to have. And not necessarily a decision that needs to be made today, but wanted to hit it before you so that you're aware.
Humble opinion, after looking at the budget already, I'm completely comfortable getting it at 12 grand for option one. Whatever it takes, landscape, fence and lighting. Good working infrastructure, not gonna fail, waterproof, hurricane proof, electronics in the trees, whatever it takes. I mean,
And would you be comfortable with us running by you, whatever proposals we might get?
I trust your judgment.
materials, those things?
No, yeah, or do you want?
Like,
to
yeah.
Their input.
Oh, your input, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But I mean,
So thank you for testing us.
I think it's important to communicate with the community at large about our efforts and that, you know, an SRO would make us feel safer or like parent knowing that there's an F might make them feel, but it might, it's not
Also
actually
could create
safer.
anxiety for other people.
As
having a-
well,
yeah,
right, I
sure.
mean, so, you know, these are the efforts, these are proven things, these are how architects are designing cityscapes now. You know, just put it, like promoting it in a positive light and really showing that we, I mean, obviously we care about safety. Obviously we want the campus secure and for people to feel safe, even in the surrounding environment that we're in, you know.
I think a meeting with Trillium is also important. Like,
You
I
have
can try to-
contacts over there? If
Yeah.
you do, then
Absolutely.
have at it.
And I think it is, because they're the ones, it's not Coastal that makes the rule about smoking, it's Trillium for them to get funded.
Well, yeah,
So-
I do understand that it is.
Right.
Related to
well,
their
something I think
Yeah,
we
so-
also
and-
need to remember
and
is the fact
maybe
that
they have some
smoking in the
funding.
state of North Carolina is legal.
It is, but they have a rule that says they have to be a certain number of feet from the
So
door
they
of the mental
stand
health
on our
establishment.
campus.
So they're
Well, it's
basically
not
saying
in
on our
our
campus
corner.
versus the Trillium understood, it's
Yeah.
a rule that they have
They
created.
are in
Is
a.
making it so that
Yeah, I understand, I
small
understand,
larger
I understand.
congregation near the school,
Sure.
maybe
Sure.
they consider their policy a little bit different.
I know this question has been asked in the past, but have we revisited with the city or with the county, whoever it might be, this idea that we can't fence off our area? We have that stupid driveway back there that we can't do anything with because it's the right of way, but it's a dead end street. There's a traffic circle there. So like if we were able to,
We could fix it all.
if we could lock our campus to a certain extent at night, I mean,
Or during the day.
or during the day, I understand that perhaps during the day, you might want to keep it open just because of like, in the event of an emergency, they gotta be able to get
And
the
we've
trucks
always
here.
had issues at night, right?
Yeah.
We found things on campus at all.
Always. But I
it's the
just, I feel
daytime
like
that's
we have a better argument for something, and I don't even know if that's the solution, but I just do think that that's something to, like, I think about Lincoln Primary in Brunswick. You've never visited it, it is literally a fortress there when school is not in session. I mean, it's double gated fence, it's crazy. So the fact that we can't put a fence up to protect ourselves to a certain extent, it seems,
So we are.
anyways, just a thought.
Patty, but we are going to need to go into closed session. We have a guest attorney who is here to speak with us. Susan, are there going to be further meetings about this particular issue, or will this be at the next board meeting? We'll talk, or-
Well, I think it depends largely on where we are tonight, but yes, we have just talked to them about the different components. So, flesh it out.
Okay.
Yeah, but
So-
she did say that the whole, the initial.
Yes.
she did. So did we admit?
Yeah,
consent?
she got it.
We have a- So can we pause?
We're gonna,
Or do we have to
if
move
you're
forward?
okay with it, you're gonna have, where our agenda's gonna be kind of
Oh,
moved
yeah.
around, so
Yeah, yeah,
we would
yeah.
have to make a vote to make a motion to, yeah, of course.
Maybe
go
go
into
into closed session.
Second. All in favor?
Thank you. You can do it.
close session.
Everybody.
Right?
For
Go into closed
current
session.
purposes.
And then we'll leave.
Yes. Lisa, can you hear me?
How do I stop them? Because we
Can
just
we
moved to go into
stay
closed session.
here?
so
I can hear you. I'm just trying to connect to my earbuds.
Okay, all right, we're
to
trying
the,
to
and I'll
logistic.
turn my audio, my string just.
Where's the YouTube?
Are we gonna stay here?
Stay here. The non-voting members are welcome to start here, and then Lisa's gonna, she is the attorney, she will let you know when you would have to exit, but we will start with you all in here if you would like. We're talking about Senate Bill 49, what we talked about with the parents.
We're still live, so.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah, okay,
That's
I'm
all
just
fine, yeah.
like making sure everybody in the room knows.
We're staying. Remain seated.
We've been spoiled by these, like, really.
I know.
They weren't like that the year before that. So, I guess we do.
There's a lot going on.
I know.
I'll work on it. Maybe they have money. They have money. They build playgrounds. Maybe they could build fences.
50% of the fence, I think. would be great.
Yeah.
I mean, they have money for prevention and for, like, there was a big publicity issue with the healing place, right, which is right, and like about being the neighbors and, the importance of mental health in the community, there was a lot of discussion.